traffic scatter, truth ascends, the world watches mesmerized. Political cows battle never ends, and in her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets scatter, truth ascends, the world watches mesmerized. Political cows battle never ends, in her light, dark meets its demise.
Well, we are back again. And I don't even think that people realized it, but the tariffs worked. Took almost no time. I mean, that was like 24 hours later. Tariffs are fully functional. They actually didn't even have a chance to go into effect. Ooh, that was me. And you see on a lot of liberal sites out there, they're saying like, oh, it took just one day for Trump to, cave to Mexico and Canada. But the bottom line is there's 10,000 troops that Mexico sending to help secure the border on their side. $1.5 billion program that Canada is going to implement to secure the border on their side, amongst other things that will continue to be discussed over the next 30 days, because this is more of a postponement than anything. So, I mean, I don't know, spin it how you want. That sounds like success, like overnight in my book. So, anyway, thanks again, everybody, for joining. I'm trying to get a multi-stream going here tonight. Let's see how that goes. Got a horizontal stream going at the same time as the vertical one. I hope that works out. Let me get the URL here. Oh, wow. Excuse that ad language that popped up. I'm trying to get the link to put into the chat. If you're on the vertical stream and you want to see horizontal, link to horizontal stream, I will pin the chat, and hopefully I got my memory situation taken care of. I still need to get some new hardware, but this might do the trick for now, because I actually have some spare memory on the computer. Anyway, good stuff going on tonight. Again, if you want to check out the stream notes, go to politicalcow.com, where I have all this content. Let me just bring up the main page. You see the Trudeau image there, 51 tattooed on his forehead. I'm trying to open up a bottle of maple syrup to take a little drink, but it's got an American flag on it, so he's a little bewildered by this whole situation. So a number of folks commented on it today. Marco Rubio gave remarks as he was in Panama doing a tour down there. Caroline Leavitt also had some commentary on this. Trump, again, in the White House, getting work done, inviting the press in to do interviews, asking questions. A lot going on constantly. More has happened in the last week and a half here than I think in the last 4 years. It's pretty remarkable stuff. So we're going to kick it off with some comments from Marco Rubio. So let's check out what he's got to say. Make sure that I got the audio updated here. All right. Yeah, just a few more settings I have to take care of if I'm doing this. Yeah, one sec. Bear with me, guys.
I mean, first of all, it's great to visit here. This is, 25% of our capacity to fix airplanes in the Western Hemisphere. You're standing in the place that does it. And this is the kind of development that you need, not just to prevent migration, but to build a middle class in countries around the world, all driven by the private sector. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, a very friendly investment climate. President Bukele, who I've known for a long time, has done an excellent job of providing security and stability. This would not be possible without that. And has invited not just the existence of these companies, which have been here for a long time, but its growth, its expansion. And if you look at the jobs, these are the kinds of jobs we want to be creating in the United States as well. These are great, good-paying jobs, skills, and it's the kind of thing that you hope to see more of, but all over the hemisphere. So it's a great, impressive place to visit. Es impresionante estar aquí hoy. Este es un sitio que 25% de la capacidad de arreglo de aviones existe aquí en el hemisferio. Y si uno ve los trabajos que existen aquí, que son trabajos, que estos son el tipo de trabajo y el tipo de industria que crea una clase media en un país. Y por eso queríamos venir. Sobre todos los otros temas que trabajamos, que el presidente Bukele y su gobierno ha creado un clima de seguridad y un clima de estabilidad que ha no solamente permitido, sino ha invitado a la inversión privada, que ha hecho posible no solamente que esta compañía sobreviva años donde era más difícil, pero ha expandido y tiene planes de seguir expandiendo. Y eso es el tipo de cosas que ayuda a crear estabilidad, no simplemente prevenir la inmigración masiva e ilegal que le hace daño a un país, sino también ayuda a un país prosperar y mantener a su
We'll get into English again here shortly. He's in Panama doing press and speech. There we go.
We're off
Back in
schedule
English.
already.
Tell us what USAID, what's happening at USAID and how the press secretary.
Well, look, I mean, my first.
So interesting. Notice that immediately the press goes to USA. They don't want to talk about this massive win that just unfolded as the morning went on. Mexican president contacting Trump, coming to terms, as has Trudeau. Trudeau was a whole different story. That's a disaster on a day-to-day basis. But again, the president of Mexico committing 10,000 of their troops to the southern border to secure the Mexican side of the border, amongst other commitments that are made. Remarkable stuff, right? And they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about those wins. They immediately go and try to nail him on USAID. Oh, we're not going to give money to here and there and whatever. USAID is going to continue. It's being folded under the State Department, which makes incredible sense to me, because what does the State Department do? It's effectively our outwardly looking part of the government. It looks out to other countries, international relations, and USAID. I don't know why it wasn't sitting there this whole time, to be perfectly honest. So it makes a lot of sense for it to go there. And you'll hear good remarks from Rubio here about there are portions of it that will be kept, but there's certainly an opportunity here to get more efficient and more effective with it. And that's the theme of the presidency that I really like. Because at the end of the day, if you could start to chip away at those trillions of dollars that are being spent by the government, puts us on a path to getting the debt out of the way, and puts us on a path to putting money back in the pockets of individuals.
Administration with USAID goes back to my time in Congress. It's a completely unresponsive agency. It's supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, and it refuses to do so. So the functions of USAID, there are a lot of functions of USAID that are going to continue, that are going to be part of American foreign policy, but it has to be aligned with American foreign policy. I said very clearly during my confirmation hearing that every dollar we spend and every program we fund, that will be aligned with the national interest of the United States. And USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity separate from the national interest. These are taxpayer dollars. And so I'm very troubled by these reports that they've been unwilling to cooperate with people who are asking simple questions about what does this program do, who gets the money, who are our contractors, who's funded. And that sort of level of insubordination makes it impossible to conduct the sort of mature and serious review that I think foreign aid writ large should have. We're spending taxpayer money here. These are not donor dollars. These are taxpayer dollars. And we owe the American people the assurance.
Exactly right. These are not donations. These are tax dollars, taking it away from individual discretion of how you should best spend your own money that you've earned.
That every dollar we are spending abroad is being spent on something that furthers our national interest. And so far, a lot of the people that work at USAID have just simply refused to cooperate.
Are you currently in charge of USAID, or are you acting?
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region. That cannot continue. USAID is not an independent, non-governmental entity. It is an entity that spends taxpayer dollars, and it needs to spend it, as the statute says, in alignment with the policy directives that they get from the Secretary of State, the National Security Council, and the President. And it's been 20 or 30 years where people have tried to reform it, and it refuses to reform. It refuses to cooperate. When we were in Congress, we couldn't even get answers to basic questions about programs. That will not continue. That's not going to continue.
Elon Musk is called a terrorist organization. Do you believe that?
I've articulated to you my challenges with it, and they go back to my time in Congress. Okay, we would ask them questions. Who does this program fund? Who gets the money? We won't tell you. We don't need to tell you.
So you see that disconnect there. U.S. aid, it's United States money going to foreign countries to further priorities of the State Department. So why is this not already operating within the guise of the State Department? There's so much of this lack of real structure and organization and dysfunction within the government. It's getting cleaned up. In some cases, it's to clean up the expenditures. In other cases, the organizational reporting lines and alignment needs to happen, because if you're supposed to further the priorities of the State Department, but you don't operate within the State Department, and you have full autonomy to say no to the State Department, then why do you exist then? If you're supposed to further those objectives that the State Department sends out, but you're actively telling them no, and you come up with your own ideas.
We're apolitical. Well, American foreign policy isn't apolitical. American foreign policy is to further the interest of the United States. If someone wants to spend apolitical dollars, they should spend private dollars, go start a charity, and you can fund anyone you want. But if you're going to spend taxpayer money, then you need to spend it in furtherance of the national interest of the United States. That's exactly what I said at my confirmation hearing. And this is not my frustration. This frustration has existed now for almost a quarter century, and multiple administrations that have gone through this challenge. It's going to stop and it's going to end.
Can you tell us a little bit about the canal conversation you had with the Panamanian president yesterday?
Well, we had a frank conversation.
Right.
What I expressed to President Molino, look, he's a friend of America. He is. He's a friend of America. Panama is a strong partner and ally of the United States. As the president has articulated, when we turned over the canal, we turned it over to Panama. We didn't turn it over to China. So you get there, and the Chinese control both entries to the port. Both entries to the port. We have a treaty obligation to protect the canal if it comes under attack, but our Navy is paying fees to go through there. So I express frustration about those things, and again, I understand that it's a delicate issue in Panama. We don't want to have a hostile or negative relationship with Panama. I don't believe we do. But we had a frank and respectful conversation, and I hope it'll yield fruits and results in the days to come.
But are you pleased, or at least encouraged, with his response about looking into this and especially?
Well, he's made some announcements about the Belt and Road Initiative, which is good. I mean, they're the first country in Western Latin America to end their relationship with Belt and Road. We do a lot of other things with Panama that go beyond just the canal. I mean, they've been a great partner on the slowing down the rate of migration on the Darien and coming across the Darien Gap and the like. So I think it was a good visit. Obviously, there's still more work to be done there, but I think it was a very good visit, and it was a worthwhile visit and a very respectful, and it was one that I think is going to achieve potentially really good things that assuage concerns we have. But time will tell. We'll see. But I felt good about it.
What's your role on Mexico? Will Mexico to pause? Can you talk about?
Well, they're going to send 10,000. Yeah, they're going to send 10,000 border agents. The president's expressed his frustration with the flow of fentanyl and illegal migration. So that's a good step. So the president, I think, has extended it by another month. And I wasn't on the call, but my understanding it was a good call with President Sheinbaum. And we want to have a good partnership with Mexico. No, they'll always be our neighbor. And so it's a country that we do a lot of things with, but we have legitimate concerns about not just the existing, but the rapidly growing presence of dangerous cartels, who in some cases operate as governments in parts of Mexico. It's a huge challenge to the sovereignty of the Mexican state. And so we seek to be good partners in that regard. I think deploying 10,000 National Guardsmen on the Mexican side from Mexican National Guardsmen is a very good sign. I'm not sure it resolves all the issues that were raised, because beyond that, there's some trade imbalance issues the president wants to address. But obviously you saw the result of that.
Where are you traveling to Mexico? Will you travel to Mexico?
Will I travel to Mexico? I'm sure I will, but we're not planning to as part of this trip. Obviously, things can change on any moment, but right now I've been in touch with their foreign minister.
Yeah, good question. Jose, U.S. aid is global. Its impact, the dollars that it expends goes around the world. So in terms of specific countries, there probably are some countries that get more than others, but by and large, it's not something related to recent tariff actions. The reporters, because they didn't want to ask too many questions about the win on the tariff side of things, jumped on USAID. I'll show a clip in a little bit here of Democrat leaders going in front of the USAID offices with protesters that they hired for like $20 for the day and a free pizza to stand there and hold signs that were kind of pre-made for them with, oddly, the same person's handwriting on each one of them. But Democrats are making a big fuss, so mainstream media is carrying that same talking point forward on U.S. aid. So that's what they're hitting up here, and that's the takeaway, right? There's a big win that they've just had on tariffs, getting Mexico to commit 10,000 troops to secure the southern border there on their side, getting Canada to commit to executing a plan that'll be $1.5 billion to secure the northern border. Those are big wins, and there's a continuing bit of negotiation because the tariffs are suspended for 30 days. So they have to come back to terms and revisit and, you know, come to additional agreements there within that time frame. So that stuff's not being asked. They're focusing in on U.S. aid as though there's some gotcha, something that they can lead with and have people forget completely about all the wins that are happening. And so you'll watch the sequence of, activities and talking what's happening throughout the day, and the media's got nothing, more or less, at this point.
We have started a pretty good relationship, and I'm sure we'll be talking or seeing them very soon, but it won't be, as of this moment, there's no plans for this trip. And I know some of you that are traveling with us want to know the answer, but we don't have any plans at this moment.
A lot of the money that USAID spends that's criticized as being charitable, I think you used that word, or welfare for poor countries. Defenders of USAID and some members of Congress say that it's in America's national interest, that it promotes stability or buys America goodwill overseas. So, I mean, what's your reaction to that? Do you think USAID does a lot of that work, but you have issues with some of the specific spending?
Yeah, well, my issue, as I said, is yeah, there are things that USAID, that we do through USAID, that we should continue to do, and we will continue to do. But everything they do has to be in alignment with the national interest and the foreign policy of the United States. And the attitude that USAID has adopted over the years is, no, we are independent of the national interest. We fund programs irrespective of whether it's aligned or not aligned with the foreign policy. That's ridiculous. These are taxpayer dollars. Every penny that we spend in foreign aid needs to be in furtherance and aligned with the national interest and the foreign policy of the United States. So this is not about ending the programs that USAID does per se. There are things that it does that are good, and there are things that it does that we have strong questions about. It's about the way it operates as an entity. And they're supposed to take direction from the State Department, policy direction. They do not. Not only do they not take policy direction, they're completely uncooperative. When you ask questions, when you try to go in and find out, okay, what does this program do? Who's getting the money? Why was this funded? Why are we doing this? Why aren't you coordinating with the embassy or the State Department? Their attitude is, we don't have to answer to you because we are independent. We answer to no one. Well, that's not true, and that will no longer be the case.
And to who
All right, thank you, guys.
Who you delegated the authority to?
You heard him just thank him because he realized I can just give you guys 10 minutes of my time. I got better things to do. I'm not going to sit here and talk about USAID all day. And he had to repeat himself, even though they started yelling questions. He said, I've delegated this responsibility to somebody else. Thank you. And he walks away. And yet they yell out there, well, who did you delegate it to? Because we're going to look up their history and try to smear them too, probably. It's ridiculousness, right? I mean, these are the major outlets, NBC, CBS, CNN, so forth, that are running all on this same mindset. It's really bizarre. Wall Street Journal published something that said this was the dumbest trade war ever. And ABC News ran with that, but they didn't bother to actually read what they meant by that. They weren't saying that this was dumb on Trump's part outright. It was just kind of like, okay, guys, you couldn't have just committed the troops to the border, fixed the situation up north, right? Like, everything is just misconstrued as it's presented, and that model hasn't changed, which is why MSNBC, CNN have seen their ratings decline so sharply, and it requires, I think, a greater level of people going and actually listening to what people say, observing what they do, what's written in the executive orders that are sent out there. You could read some of the executive order items on politicalcow.com. I put them in prior stream notes, but still, it requires a lot more effort on individuals now. But the nice thing is, on the X platform and elsewhere, there's a collective coming together to help us all strive towards, Jerry Winters, exactly right. Like these people that are asking all these questions, I mean, just completely off base, right? So Jerry's with us here.
Great, thank you, everybody. Didn't expect that.
All right, so that was Rubio. Caroline spent a few minutes with the media too, and never ceases to impress me. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I don't know how one just kind of is just built for a role like this, but I mean, she's perfect.
That the tariffs on Mexico
this month from Mexico with those troops going to the border?
I think the president has made it astoundingly clear that the reason for these tariffs, and I just talked a lot about this on Fox News, is the illegal surge of deadly drugs and of human beings that we have seen trafficked over the southern border and the northern border, hence the tariffs on Canada. And so the president is making it very clear to both Canada and Mexico that the United States is no longer going to be a dumping ground for illegal deadly drugs and illegal human beings. And you saw President Sheinbaum already conceding and putting 10,000 troops, permanent troops, I would add, not temporary, Mexican soldiers on the southern border to deter some of that illegal migration. So the president will continue to have these negotiations. I won't get ahead of him. He's also going to make sure that Secretary Bessent, soon to be Secretary Lutnick, and Secretary Rubio are deeply involved in these negotiations as well. Steve. Sure. Well, he said in the Oval Office it'll happen in the next couple of days. I don't have a schedule yet, but I can check with NSC and let you guys know. And we'll obviously provide a readout of that call either via White House statement like we do or via Truth Social like we do sometimes as well. Caitlin.
Confirm that Elon Musk is a special government employee.
Yes.
What kind of security clearance does he have?
I can confirm he's a special government employee. I can also confirm that he has abided by all applicable federal laws. As for his security clearance, I'm not sure, but I can check back with you.
Did he pass a background check? Do you know?
I don't know about the security clearance, but I can check.
And do you know about anyone who's on his team that was at USAID this weekend or at Treasury Department, whether they also have security clearances?
I don't know, but I can check on that for you. Sure.
I want to ask about the hostage deal. We saw people coming out of Gaza alive because Trump managed to get this deal done.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was very emotional for people in Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu is coming here tomorrow. He might not want to go through with the second phase of the deal. What do you think President Trump would like to happen?
Well, I'm not so sure that's true. The ceasefire was extended because of the work of President Trump and his presidential envoy, Steve Witkoff, who has proven to be an incredibly effective negotiator. And the president and this entire administration are committed to having all of the hostages come home. And as you've seen, his team is working very, very hard to do that. And
Still one American hostage coming back home, and another
That's
one
right.
will be back home soon.
yes, we hope so.
Caroline.
Sure.
Carolyn, the president's a keen watcher of the financial markets. How much did Wall Street's halt this morning have an impact on his decision in regards to the Mexico tariff decision?
It had no decision. What impacted the delay on the tariffs was the president of Mexico committing to putting 10,000 permanent soldiers on the U.S.-Mexican border. The president cares about American lives. And as I just said on television, there's a lot of talk about the markets. There's a lot of talk about, the cost of goods. This administration is wholeheartedly committed to bringing down the cost of living in this country. You see that.
I want to rewind just to make sure I heard the question correctly. I think another attempt to misconstrue or redefine reality here on the part of the media. So let me just rewind it real quick so we hear the question.
The president of Mexico committing to putting 10,000 permanent
Decision in regards.
So,
Caroline.
sure.
Carolyn, the president's a keen watcher of the financial markets. How much did Wall Street's halt this morning have an impact on his decision in regards to the Mexico tariff decision?
It had no decision. What impacted the delay on the tariffs was the president of Mexico committing to putting 10,000 permanent soldiers.
So, trying to misconstrue why the tariff implementation was delayed. And she's setting the record straight, like, why did we delay it? They made commitments to us of putting 10,000 troops on the southern border. That's massive. 10,000 troops, right? Secure the border. So they're taking steps towards that, and they're going to work towards a longer-term solution. It's been suspended by, I believe it was 30 days. So it's not like this has disappeared. It's still something that needs to be revisited soon, and maybe something that's made a little bit more final and long-term. But this is like a really immediate win. And what he's been in office, I don't know, 2 weeks now, let's say.
Soldiers on the U.S.-Mexican border. The president cares about American lives. And as I just said on television, there's a lot of talk about the markets. There's a lot of talk about, the cost of goods. This administration is wholeheartedly committed to bringing down the cost of living in this country. You see that through deregulation, through the energy actions this president has taken, and also through his commitment.
I might need a little help with the comment here, Marco. So it says, can we just talk about the irony while Republicans are screaming DEI all campaign and these appointees are getting positions of power that they have never something in their lives. It just feels like I assume you mean like they've never been in positions like this. So I'll take the Pete Hegseth example mentioned in previous live streams. Go watch the live stream that we have out there that we kind of did some analysis as the confirmation hearing was happening. Who in the world has led an organization that has millions of people in it, that has a budget of over $600 billion? How many people have done that? If we're going to say that they need to check those particular boxes as they did in the confirmation hearing. There's literally just a handful of people, and it's like the CEO of Walmart and maybe other massive companies like that, Amazon. But are they really equipped to then take the job of defense secretary? Or would you need somebody that has military experience, that has aptitude? I mean, I always go back to Barack Obama. What qualified him to be president, if we're going to have a checklist in that manner? What qualifies anyone to be president? Right? Because Obama, and it's just go look at his Wikipedia page, did not have any genuine leadership experience. He was a civil rights lawyer. He was a community organizer. And during his tenure as a civil rights lawyer, he was not the lead attorney on a case. And the case was settled with Citibank for about $900,000. Again, look at the Wikipedia page. It's all there. Settled for attorney fees for $900,000. So they didn't even really make a big dent in things, right? They had some commitment and so forth, but it was not this massive settlement that they were looking for. So when you start looking at those types of things and think about like, well, what did qualify him? Because, you know, as soon as he was done with that, he got into the state Senate in Illinois, then he got into the Senate, and then he went on his presidential run. What said that he was well suited to be president? Now, he actually did a good job. He had the aptitude to execute the role of the president. I don't agree with a lot of the decisions he made or the policies that he put into play, but he was able to do the job. So there's some other factor. You can't just say, you know, oh, like she's 27, Caroline Levitt. She's 27. She's never had a role where she's had to act in a communications capacity for this massive organization that is the U.S. government. No way. This is a DEI hire. If you watched her through the campaign trail, you could see the potential that was sitting there waiting for the right opportunity. And now she's stepped up and doing a fantastic job of it. Karine Jean-Pierre, there's integrity stuff going on that side of the house. She had a lot of experience and she stepped into that job and she did it, right? I'm always surprised how she held a straight face. I mean, that was not a good, easy position that she was put in a lot of times, but she did that job and you could see a clear linkage to experience. And so sometimes that is the case. But it's not an absolute. So anyway, thanks, Marco. Good question.
To cutting taxes, but when it comes to the cost of an American life, I think for those of us who have children, there's not enough money in the world to bring back the lives that have been lost because of the illegal drug and border crisis, and the president is committed to ensuring that Canada and Mexico and China understand that the United States is not going to be a dumping ground for illegal fentanyl that is killing young people in this country. It's the leading cause of death amongst those aged 18 to 34, and that's the president's #1 priority, is protecting American lives.
Caroline, can you talk more about the first call that President Trump had with Prime Minister Trudeau this morning? What were some areas for potential negotiations and any bottlenecks?
Yeah, I hate to be coy, but just because I believe they're on the phone right now, I'll have to go in and check. I don't want to get ahead of the discussions or the conversations, but in the effort of transparency, we will either provide a readout or you'll hear from the president directly.
Caroline, what do you say to Americans who understand the president's negotiating strategy and understand the goals that he's trying to achieve with tariffs, but are worried they're going to get caught in the middle of this and feel the pain, potentially in the short term or even long term?
Well, they won't get caught in the middle if they just comply with what the United States is asking for, which are very simple measures to work with us when it comes to border security, to cooperate with the repatriation of their nation's citizens. You saw President Trump effectively utilize tariffs when he was negotiating with Colombia last weekend as well. Ultimately, they conceded and agreed to the deportation flights that many of them have landed in the last week.
Caroline,
Karen.
Do you know if Mr. Musk took the same oath that you and other senior advisors advisors to the president took about adhering to the Constitution, following the law. Do you know if he took that oath?
I don't know the answer to that question, but like I told Caitlin, I can get back to you guys on that.
And do you know what expertise he has in the areas of global health or humanitarian aid to be able to assess what's happening at USAID?
Well, first of all, Elon Musk is a once-in-a-generation business leader. He is an entrepreneur. He serves as a great ally and a friend to the president. And I think Elon Musk also has a little bit of common sense. And I think the American people really appreciate that when it comes to the federal government, because it seems like all common sense has been lost in this city. And that's what you see when you look at USAID. I know Secretary Rubio made some comments about how he will be acting as the director over that agency. And here's the reason why Elon Musk and others have been taking a look. Because if you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities.
All right. Now, she keeps this handy, right? It's not a prop. She's got her notes handy on this particular topic. Now, either she was ready for this moment because she knew it would come up, which is phenomenal preparation, or they were just talking about it and they're really going into this level of detail. So when you get into this granular, into the millions, single-digit millions, hundreds of thousands, $30,000 range, and you're going through that level of detail to cut funding, that's crazy. They are literally going through every single line item, which in a multi-trillion-dollar budget it's astonishing that they're going to go to that level of detail. Again, Elon has said that it'll bring some AI and some other capabilities to bear to be able to go through massive amounts of data very quickly and very safely. And so maybe they're bringing some of that up front. But listen to what she brings up here. Some of the programs, again, USAID being brought up. They tried to hit Rubio with it earlier. They didn't want to talk about the wins on the tariffs. And now they're trying to hit her with it because she's kind of articulating quite a few wins that are happening across the board, reinforcing the stuff that Marco Rubio was talking about. So they're trying to hit her up with USAID, probably because these folks hadn't gotten the memo yet that there's nothing there to talk about. But nonetheless, let's watch and see how she responds to this.
That organization has been spending money on $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do.
Unreal. I mean, they've got to be speechless, like foot and mouth. Nice job, media, right? Just like threw her a softball with that one.
To get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government. Thank you, guys.
And then the funny thing is, she knows when to drop the mic, or at least she knows when the mic has been dropped, right? So it's kind of like, thanks, guys, for the opportunity to completely obliterate you. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. So she'll probably have a daily press briefing tomorrow, go into a little bit more depth, and you'll see those reporters, they work hard for their moments. They're not really asking questions. It's not about journalism anymore. They want to be that viral clip, the one that stumped her, the one that did, whatever. Maybe it'll have a moment on the Rachel Maddow show if they can really misconstrue what was represented there. But true journalism was gone at this point. You could see again here, they're trying to push that USAID thing. They tried to do the same thing to Rubio. It's not working because everybody's on the same page. They have a plan. They're working in lockstep. I haven't seen this level of organization ever in government. I mean, ever. The left hand never talks to the right hand. I'm just astonished with how well things are going, and we're just 2 weeks in. I mean, what's going to happen when they really are clicking, and they've really been in there for a little bit? I mean, it's just remarkable stuff. Marco, let's see. This feels authoritarian to me, oligarchy style. Has this always been the Republican dream? Doesn't feel good to know that the richest man in the world is controlling government spending. He's not controlling government spending. And we got another clip here of Trump coming up, and you'll be able to hear his perspective on it. That effectively he's asking him, do your thing. You're not just a brilliant guy that can bring new engineering innovations to the world, whether it's PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, so forth. You're also a very shrewd businessman who knows how to sniff out overrun in cost, get efficient. I mean, he cut 80% of Twitter's staff, right? And the thing still works, and it actually works better, and they're getting more features and products out there much more quickly than they were in the past. And so how is that? You scratch your head and it's like, how did they have 80% too many people? And that was a company that had to run quarterly reports, that had a board of directors and shareholders that they were beholden to, and they were, compelled to create value and grow their asset base for them. Government's a little bit different. They don't operate on the P&L. They just, operate on, very unfortunate, they operate on the L. Spend, create more losses. So him coming in here to do this, I mean, it would be the same to say, like, hey, the Democrats won. They want to bring a genius in to help out with how do we create all these new government spending programs and put them out there really quick. Hey, Mark Cuban, can you come help us print more money and spend it wisely? And nobody would have a problem if Mark Cuban came in to do that. It's just, right now, the thought process is, let's put money back in the hands of individuals because the system's not working. I mean, Biden exacerbated a broken system, swamp as it was referred to by Trump. He exacerbated that broken system and then printed money and put it into that broken system. And so what do people think is going to happen if you just throw money into a system that's not functioning already? It's not doing well at all. What do you expect that would happen, right? It's not going to create equity, as they would like to say. The system has to get fixed, and that's what we're after here. That's why going after structural organizational change in the government itself is one major first step towards this end goal. Inflation has gone crazy. We need to bring wage growth into the United States in the right way. And ways to do that is to stop, the spending spree that the government is going on, to stop the printing press, to bring more revenue through other means into the government. The tariffs, right, were really going to be somewhat of a luxury tax in some cases. I mean, you could, Ford, GM, other manufacturers that are in the United States, people would go buy those vehicles and they would ramp up production of those vehicles that are built in the United States that didn't have these tariffs imposed on them. Yeah, there may be certain parts and components, but by and large, there would be a massive shift of manufacturing that happens into the United States. And there's a long-term benefit to that. The long-term benefit and the supply chains associated with it, people getting jobs that are higher paying here. The idea of us being a service-based economy and people, working in retail and so forth versus people working in factories and creating products and stuff. There's clearly, you're going to make more money having, a higher level of skills, being a technician, being able to work within some of these very hyper automated scenarios than you would in retail. And so if more things come back manufacturing wise, it's not a 1-for-1. 1,000 people in a plant in China is not going to be 1,000 people here. It's going to be maybe 100, but those 100 people will be very highly paid because they'll be trained in automation and a lot of the other things that go into more sophisticated manufacturing processes, right? The industrial design has changed completely. And it has to, so that it can be at a lower price point and so that it can be safer, because there's a lot more expectation on companies these days, right? So it's not a 1-for-1 that's going to come back, but when it does come back, these are going to be really nice jobs. It'll really kind of boost the communities and the individuals that are able to take advantage of it. So I don't think it's authoritarian. Again, the Mark Cuban example, people would welcome him open arms on the Democrat side if you wanted to do something like this. All right, Jose, she's a force of truth we've been needing for a long time. I mean, since Kayleigh McEnerney, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was great also. There's been a nice Sean Spicer, that guy's a whole other story. That guy's crazy. But Trump has had really good luck with press secretaries, I have to say. Money miner, Biden economy was doing great. My portfolio was booming. Ask me or tell me about that again in 3 months. I genuinely think we're in a hidden downward slide. So a lot of times, folks on the Biden side of the house like to point to the stock market as though that's the great indicator of how well all individuals are doing. I'm doing great. Trust me. I'm portfolio is up 50%. Like, who can say that, right? But for the masses, how many people actually have a portfolio, so to speak? Folks are living paycheck to paycheck. The bottom 25%, the bottom 50% of the socioeconomic brackets. What does that mean to them? Like, they just want to make ends meet. They just need to pay rent. Half of the nation cannot pay rent consistently on a month-to-month basis. And yet the Democrats are just pointing to the stock market. Like, guys, be quiet. We're doing good. Stock market's up. That's where the disconnect and the absolute ivory tower nature of the Democratic Party started to come surface. And hey, guys, thanks for subscribing. So another one go up there, uptick. Help me get to 17,000. Let's see if we can get 17,000 tonight. But that's where the disconnect started to happen, and that's why the votes did not go the way they expected. Because when you look at real metrics about individuals and families, like I just talked about, half of the country is struggling to pay rent or their mortgage month to month. A quarter of those individuals skip meals just to make ends meet, and that's to pay that rent, to pay electricity, pay for water, the base services. They skip meals. This is outrageous. This is not the American economy or the American dream that anyone can achieve. Kids are coming out of college with massive amounts of debt, and the wages that are being offered will not allow them to realistically, if they just stay on that track without having to do a lot of side gigs and side hustles and stuff. That whole concept of a side hustle is a very new thing. It wasn't around when I was going through college or high school or growing up. You could try to, start your own business, but that's a whole other concept. It's not, I need to go be an Uber driver and have a regular 9 to 5, right? Do multiple things like that. In fact, the employment report, if you look at it, year over year, 500,000 more people have taken on part-time work in addition to their full-time job than in the prior year. And that has been, increasing in succession throughout Biden's administration. So you start looking at those numbers and those data points that actually speak to the quality of life and to how well people are doing, and it paints a very different picture than what the stock market's saying. The stock market's easy. It's an easy during the Biden administration. You increase money supply, you put it into a broken system, then the broken system just sends that money straight to the top where the markets are, right? Because it favors assets over people that are operating simply on cash. When you print money like that, who owns all the assets, right? It's already people that have a fair level of wealth. And so their assets will grow in value, and they're doing all right. They can borrow off of that. They can do all kinds of techniques to continue to enrich themselves. But the folks that don't have assets of significance in that degree, or any at all, are the ones that lose out. And unfortunately, that's a very large number of folks in the country, just as a consequence of how things have changed. And so that's what Trump is looking to address, is this systemic model that is broken, and the feeding of additional dollars and expansion of the money supply into this broken system, as Biden had done, is not the answer. It's continued to drive this downward spiral, unfortunately. All right, let me look a couple more comments here. Marco, my cousin's insulin for diabetes went from $40 to under 80 in the past month. Yeah, that's no good. We got to fix healthcare. That's a whole other problem. In fact, when you look at it, what is it? Is it the number 3 spend category that we have from the government? Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Hang on, bear with me, guys. Let me see if I got it here. Tariffs analysis, Christy Gnomes OG. Let me look at my last stream notes. Okay, these are the tariff levels. Let me just double check you guys are able to see what I'm looking at here. Yep. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. Sorry. So I don't know why the title just blanked out here. All right, breakdown of the federal budgets. So Social Security is a big spend item. Defense, Medicare, $850 billion. Other healthcare, $750 billion. You add those two numbers up, and healthcare is actually our number 1 spend item. So when you look at all those dollars and you look at all the monies that people put into insurance, plans, there's there's massive amounts of money being floated around for healthcare. I hope that they take a serious look at that. So I'm pretty fiscally conservative, but honestly, all the dollars floating around for healthcare, can that be restructured and optimized in a different way? To where the scenario that you're outlining can be changed? Because I think that's terrible. That's awful. $180, that's ridiculous, So I agree on that. That's a action that I hope is taken, and I don't see value that insurance companies are adding into the picture for the healthcare system. That's a difficult proposition for me to reconcile in my mind. And I've got a friend whose daughter was critically ill since she was very young, doing better now, thankfully. But for many, many years, they had to sell their home, live with parents, and they're getting crushed with medical bills. And how much care and how much dedication they put towards it. It just makes you wonder, is that the right thing? Would you charge somebody for the police to come, rescue them from a scenario, or firefighters or whatever? I don't know. That one's a whole deep discussion that's very difficult to wrap our heads around, because there's so much tied into it. And the bottom line for me is, does insurance need to go away? And yeah, I wonder, do we need to centralize healthcare more in some way? I just don't know how to do it right, because I see these lines developing in Canada where people are, I don't know if anyone's in Canada on the stream right now, but I saw lines developing in certain cities where there's a new primary care physician and people have been waiting for a very long time. I don't know if it's months or years for a new primary care physician, and they're waiting in line to get signed up with somebody. I hear of physicians leaving Canada and going to Australia, where they can make quite a bit more, because their incomes are effectively capped after all that effort that went into becoming a doctor. So how do you balance all those things out? I hope that maybe some brilliant folks can get together and try to work through that a little bit. But there's a lot of money being spent, as you can see here, on healthcare. It's our top spend item next to Social Security and National Defense, but we don't do it very well. So the system needs to change. And that's what I think the theme has been. Systemically, we need to change these things and not continue to pour more and more money into a system that's not really working. It's pretty broken. All right. Like and subscribe, folks. Por favor. Let's get to Trump over here talking about all sorts of things. Again, watch. They'll hit him up with USAID. Is it USAID or USAID? I don't know. But they'll hit him up with stuff like that again, too, trying to derail from the wins that have happened, right? All right, let's get him going. And again, he's signing executive orders, getting things done right in front of the cameras. Remarkable stuff.
Thank you very much. We have some very exciting news today. We have numerous fronts are being covered. Before we do that, Will will give me certain proclamations. We'll sign them, and you'll hear a little bit about them. Will, please.
Yes, sir. First, we have for your signature 5 official designations of special envoys. The first is Mr. Steve Witkoff, who's actually in the room, to be your Middle East envoy.
Where is Steve? Steve Witkoff, everybody. He's done a great job in the Middle East. Really great. But how it all turns out. It's complex, but I think he's going to do very well.
Next, we have Mauricio Claver-Carron to be your special envoy to Latin America, sir.
All right. Good man. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have retired General Keith Kellogg to be your special envoy on Russian-Ukraine issues.
We've made a lot of progress on Russia, Ukraine. We'll see what happens, but a lot of progress has been made. We're going to stop that ridiculous war. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have designation of Rick Grinnell, to be your envoy for special missions.
I sent him to California to turn on the water. We turned it on. It was not easy because we had to go through a lot of environmentalists that are causing a lot of problems. And we have billions of gallons of water. It was on 3 days ago. You probably saw. It should have gotten a lot of press, but it didn't get much. All we're doing is giving Los Angeles and the entire state of California virtually unlimited water, which they could have done 5 years ago, which I told them they should do, but the environmentalists stopped them. And we opened it, and we did it regardless of the state. And now the state seems to be very happy. I spoke with Gavin Newsom, and he's very happy. I almost called him by the other name, didn't I? My little nickname for him. But I think they're all happy. They have a lot of water in California. Too bad we didn't have it about 2 months ago, right? That was, by the way, that was a big move. We have, I don't know if you saw the pictures that were released of the water pouring down from the Pacific Northwest and Canada and lots of other places. And it's a pretty amazing sight.
Mr. President, Rick Brunel had a big Friday trip as well.
He had a very big Friday trip. You're right. We'll talk about that. He's a good man, Rick.
Lastly, sir, we have a designation of Mark Burnett as your special envoy to the United Kingdom.
You know who Mark Burnett is? I figure he should be good. He's certainly done a great job. Friend of mine and very talented guy. We have very talented people working for us. I'll hold that one up because Mark gets so much television. We'll hold it up, right? He'll be thrilled to see it. He's going to do a good job.
Thank you, sir. Next, your administration has smashed records for appointing large numbers of highly qualified, capable people at all levels of the federal government. These are 28 sub-cabinet level officials being appointed to a number of different departments and agencies. Some of them are quite important positions like departmental general counsels, but these are people who have been pre-vetted and have received your approval previously.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, this is an executive order. This charges your Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and your Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to begin a process that will hopefully result in the creation of an American sovereign wealth fund.
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. We have a lot of things that create wealth, and you're seeing that over the last 2 weeks. I think we've created more wealth. Other people have created de-wealth, the people, my predecessors. We're creating a lot of wealth. Scott, maybe you'd like to say something about it, and I'd ask also Howard to say something about it.
Yes, sir, this is very exciting. We're going to stand this thing up within the next 12 months. We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work, and I think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to study best practices as done around the world. It'll be a combination of liquid assets, assets that we have in this country as we work to bring them out for the American people.
The extraordinary size and scale of the U.S. government and the business it does with companies should create value for American citizens. If we are going to buy 2 billion COVID vaccines, maybe we should have some warrants and some equity in these companies and have that grow for the help of the American people. So I bring all these things together, I think we'll create.
So, Adam, thanks for the comment there. There's, before this event here, right? I mean, Biden would just sit there kind of looking dumbfounded and sign and hold the pen up in the air to an imaginary person to take it from him. All of these things are decision points that have been made. So there's 10 things that are being talked about today. Decision points that have been made, right? These are 10 things that I want you guys to do. Hey, write it out, spell it out, the language of it. Have the attorneys, everybody give it a thumbs up that it looks good and it meets the criteria and expectations that you've set out. Okay, it's done. They have these binders on his desk with Post-its, and the aides that are standing there with him take one and read the binder like, okay, this one is, Executive Order A that you wanted, that you're going to be signing. And then he gives some commentary. He might throw it to one of the folks that are in the room with him that had something to do with it, give them an opportunity to talk about it. So, I mean, this is a ceremonial act that I think this is very appropriate. I mean, this is how, things should operate, honestly. Giving somebody an opportunity to describe something they've contributed towards. And that's perfectly normal.
Scott and I will create an amazing sovereign wealth fund for you, sir.
So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that, what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it. Otherwise, we won't.
Yeah, I mean, so just listen to how he's operating here. I'm responding to the comment Adam has here in the chat. You really think he knows? I do. All of these things are things that he's talked about in interviews with a lot of his campaign events. He'll kind of go on a sidetrack and talk about, some detailed areas and his opinions and the stances he's going to take on them. And now he's kind of following through on it. So he gives commentary, and again, there's people that you assign to delegate. Trump is not going to do everything. He's the leader. He's making decisions. He's setting principles and outcomes that he's after. How those things get done, or how they get prescribed and written out, there's a whole staff of people that'll follow through and execute on that. And a couple of those people might be in the room here as he asks them to expand on it. And it's just a thing that you want to give them an opportunity to showcase their contribution. Perfectly normal protocol. It's normal activity that happens in business all the time.
But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And I think in a short period of time, we'd have one of the biggest funds, and some of them are pretty large. I must tell you, some of the Saudi Arabia fund is on the large side, but eventually we'll catch it. But we're going to create a lot of wealth for the fund, and I think it's about time that this country had a sovereign wealth fund. And these two gentlemen and some others are going to work with them very closely, and they'll be heading it up, and they're going to do a great job. Two highly respected people that have done unbelievably well in the world, in the real world. So that's a big deal, huh?
Yes, sir. I think it's going to create value and be of great strategic importance.
Hi, this is Jacob.
For Elon Musk to have access to the payment systems at Treasury.
Well, he's got access only to letting people go that he thinks are no good if we agree with him, and it's only if we agree with him. He's a very talented guy from the standpoint of management and costs, and we put him in charge of seeing what he can do with certain groups and certain numbers. Some of the numbers are horrible, what he's found. $100 million on condoms to Hamas, and many other things that are frankly even more ridiculous. And they're finding tremendous waste, really waste more than anything else, I think you could say. Probably fraud and abuse can be added to it, the more standard waste, fraud, and abuse. But they're finding tremendous amounts of really bad things, bad spending. You've been writing about some of it, frankly, and some of the things that they've been doing is just terrible. Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval, and we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't. But he reports in, and it's something that he feels very strongly about, and I'm impressed because he's running, obviously, a big company. It has nothing to do, if there's a conflict, that we won't let him get near it. But he does have a good natural instinct. He's got a team of very talented people. We're trying to shrink government, and he can probably shrink it as well as anybody else, if not better. Where we think there's a conflict or there's a problem, we won't let him go near it. but he has some very good ideas, and we have a lot of very other talented people also. We're bringing in the most talented people in the world. By the way, we just unrelated, but we have two of the most talented people in the world, the legendary Rupert Murdoch and Larry Ellison. So they are two legends in business, publishing, and probably every other.
Good comments, Adam. So worried about the little guy here, or the regular guy, excuse me, with all the billionaires jumping in the government, as has been, a talking point here recently. I think of it in these terms, right? And guys, if you're in the live stream, give it a like, subscribe. Very grateful if you do. These are the terms that I think of it, right? Is Trump during his first presidency lost what? His net worth went from $3 billion to $2.5 billion or something like that. Hundreds of millions of net worth was lost on his part. You look at Nancy Pelosi, some of these other Congress people that have been lifers, and they go in of modest means, but when they leave, they have tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank or in assets. And so then you wonder who's acting on behalf of the people, or who's there for something beyond personal enrichment. Because Trump knows very well that they're going after him. I mean, that fine that he had to pay to New York and everything, he didn't complain in a way to say, that, oh, this is terrible, I'm not worth it, I quit, right? He didn't say anything like that. He just spoke to the unfairness of it and how people were effectively out to get him, and he moved on and kept pushing forward, right? I mean, that to me, that speaks volume. That's a pretty big deal in terms of who it is that's actually going after benefits for common Americans, right? Rather than benefits that are just for, personal enrichment or for very wealthy folks.
The Rupert is Larry pretty much in a class by himself, right? I mean, although you may have a couple of bucks more, I don't know, but Rupert is in a class by himself. He's an amazing guy, and Larry is Larry. Larry's one of the most serious players anywhere in the world. So it's an honor to have you. This has nothing to do with you people, but they're here, and I thought it would be appropriate. I'm sure you didn't recognize them. They're all going crazy. They're saying, "What are they doing here?"
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, on the tariff, is there any chance that Canada or China could also get out of the tariffs after you struck a deal with Mexico?
Well, nobody's out with Mexico. We had a great talk with Mexico, and we had President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000, could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do. Other than that, we've agreed to talk and consider various other things. We haven't agreed on tariffs yet, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. But we have a very good relationship. I also spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, and we had a good talk in the morning, but I did ask him a couple of questions, like, banks aren't allowed to do business in Canada. Canada is very tough. Canada is very, we're not treated well by Canada, and we have to be treated well. Banks are not, as an example, allowed. Did you know that? That American banks are not allowed to do business in Canada. Can you believe that? And that's one of many things, and we talked about it, and I think we'll win most of the subjects. But for some reason, a lot of things have been very unfair with Canada. I noticed that in the first term. You deal with people, and after a while you begin to realize, like you learn that Larry Ellison's very tough to do business with, okay? He's a very tough guy. I mean, I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. But Canada is very tough. They're very, very tough to do business with, and we can't let them take advantage of the U.S. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part. They don't take our cars. They make cars, but they basically don't take our cars. And, you know, we don't need, and look, I think we're going to have another good conversation today. We're actually speaking at 3 o'clock again. But we don't need them to make our cars. We don't need them to give us lumber. We don't need them for agricultural products because we have all the agriculture we need. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part, our milk and dairy, etc. A little bit they do, but not much. We take theirs. And as far as cars are concerned, they took in a big percentage, almost 19% of the market. And, you know, I wouldn't mind making our cars in the United States. So we have a problem there. I'd like to make our cars in the U.S. We don't need Canada to make our cars. With that being said, we're going to have another call at 3 o'clock. We had a call this morning. It was a pretty good call, I'd say. So the call with Mexico went very well in the sense that they're very strong now on the border. They're going to put soldiers there. So, actually, they're best military soldiers, and they're going to be at the border, 10,000. That's a lot of soldiers. And they want to protect it also. You know, they don't want people running through Mexico, coming through Mexico to come into our country. So they're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about other things over the next 30 days, we're going to have Scott, Howard, and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, lead the delegation. And we're going to have a big negotiation with Mexico. I'll be involved too, and President Sheinbaum will be involved to see whether or not we can work something out on the tariffs.
What about fentanyl?
China will be speaking to China probably over the next 24 hours.
On fentanyl in China, President Trump.
We don't want fentanyl coming into our country. Now, we had another big thing, speaking of China. China's involved with the Panama Canal. They won't be for long. And that's the way it has to be. Marco just got back, as you know. He's in the process of coming back. I guess he's almost back by now. And he had a very long conversation with the leader of Panama, the respected man, and some others, the entire leadership group. And we're trying to work a deal on the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal was given foolishly years ago to, it shouldn't have been happened, years ago to Panama, like Jimmy Carter and the group. We lost 38,000 people building the Panama Canal, like one of the great wonders of the world. It's the biggest job we've ever built, the biggest project we've ever built in this country, dollar-wise and every other way. 38,000 people died, Americans, all men, just about.
I want to respond to a comment in the live stream chat here. Dwayne says Trump didn't win anything. Canada's $1.3 billion was negotiated under Biden in December. Okay, so CBC here, right? CBC talking. It's not the U.S. outlet. This is literally, is it Canadian Broadcasting? I don't know. Major Canadian publication. Trump to pause permanent tariffs for 30 days after speaking with Trudeau. And where is it now? 1.3. To get Trump to shelve the punishing tariffs, Trudeau told him Canada is pressing ahead with this previously announced border security plan that includes all these things, so on and so forth. They weren't going through with this thing. This thing was shelved, right? This thing was put, out there, and they just said, "Oh, we're gonna do this," but they had no intention of actually committing to it. So, tariffs are not in themselves money makers, which you can, but it's the drive behavior for the most part. And so it successfully drove that behavior for them to actually follow through on these programs that they're saying that they supposedly would do, right? So it's an interesting scenario, right? That, hey, like, live up to your commitments and, do these things, right? Or in the case of China, like the protection of intellectual property rights and a lot of other things, it's those behaviors that, we're after changing. So it gets pretty complicated. And the sad thing is that a lot of the mainstream news and stuff, they don't highlight, the specific nature or exactly the nuance around some of these things. And so it gets lost in a lot of it, right? Let me just take a look there. Don't get me wrong. Go to forum, and I agree about your point about his personal wealth. In the first term, I was just telling to see who we'd select. Who was seated the inauguration day. Yeah, but I mean, the folks that are always in the audience are somebodies. They don't really put average folks in there. Maybe it'd be nice just find people. Does they do a lottery for that? I don't know. But I tell you what, they are opening up the White House press room to non-mainstream media, outlets, individual influencers, content creators, which I have applied. 7,500 had applied. I don't know. Hopefully I will get selected. I don't know if it's a lottery or what. It's a very basic form. You didn't really get to say a whole lot on it. I think you just put some of your links in there and they'll look you up. But I don't know. They're doing some things along those lines. I hope they do more.
Laborers and construction people, they went to Panama. The mosquito got them. Between mosquito and snakes, we lost 38,000 people. It was the most expensive project ever built by the United States. The biggest, most expensive project we ever built 110 years ago. If you bring it up to now, it would have been the equivalent of $2 trillion. The most expensive we ever built, and we gave it away for $1, okay? We gave it away essentially for nothing. And we either want it back or we're going to get something very strong, or we're going to take it back. And China will be dealt with. And we didn't give that to China. We gave it to Panama. We shouldn't have given it to Panama. But Panama, as you know, has violated the agreement, totally violated the agreement. So that's in the process right now. But they did have a very good meeting with the head of Panama.
In addition to tariffs on China, can you say your current thinking about whether China should be forced to pay reparations both for fentanyl deaths and the million COVID?
No, I haven't talked about that, but they do have tariffs. Honestly, nobody, the amount of money that was lost and most importantly, the lives lost because of COVID is not something that anybody could ever even imagine. It's probably $60 trillion, and all the countries in the world don't have $60 trillion. The amount of death and the amount of destruction and the amount of money lost is probably $60 trillion. I had it figured by people about 3 months ago. It figured out. Nobody knows what the real number is, but it's almost an infinite number. The damage done, but I have not discussed that. What I have discussed is we'll have some good meetings with China. We have meetings planned, and we'll see what happens. But that was just an opening salvo. If we can't make a deal with China, then the tariffs will be very, very substantial. Okay, I'm going to sign this one.
Sir, this is, you've obviously made making America healthy again a key priority of this administration. A key component of that is obviously heart health. This is a ceremonial proclamation declaring the month of February to be National Heart Month.
Okay. I hear we're doing very well with nominations. We'll see, but it looks like we're doing very well with nominations.
Mr. President, have you been involved with calling senators who had some concerns about Tulsi Gabbard or
Yes.
RFK?
Yeah, I've gotten great response. And they want to do what's right, and we've had a good response. I think we'll do well. We have great people like this. We have great people coming in. I think I'd like to say the best ever recruited for government. I think we have the finest people ever recruited for government.
Will it take an active Congress?
And you know what? You're starting to see that because we've done more in 2 weeks than Biden's done in 5 years, 6 years. They could be here between him and Obama. You add it up, okay? We've done more in 2 weeks than they've done in 12 years.
Will it take an active Congress to...
Hey, so just quick info for a comment in the chat. Jeff talking about the Panama Canal. There were stipulations to it. So the just a handful of them here. So, by the end of 1999, full control was to be handed over to Panama. Okay, that was a long time ago now. But they did stipulate that neutrality had to be maintained for the canal. It needed to be open for all ships of all nations, right? They could not. And so now China coming in there, controlling both sides of it, the flow of, commercial vessels going back and forth, being influenced, they're starting to violate that commitment, right? So, I mean, this was, part of the commitment. Operation and defense of it, the United States did retain the right to defend the canal and ensure its continued neutrality of operation. So then you start to see like, oh, wait a minute. Well, there's parts of it that we could kind of point to. And when he says we can go in there, these are the elements that he's talking about. We can go in there and take over operations because you guys aren't sustaining neutrality of it. You're giving, favoritism, or you're demonstrating kind of an economic, interests that's citing, favor for one company, or not company, country versus another, breaking that neutrality agreement. And so, I mean, effectively, so I mean, the compensation for it, way back when may not have been there, but there still were stipulations that, and I mean, they go into more detail and there's more legal language around it, but if the neutrality of it is not maintained, right, the U.S. reserves that right to go defend the canal and ensure that it remains operational and it stays neutral. So that's what they're falling back on at this point.
Do away with USAID, or do you believe you have?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, we've not when it comes to fraud. If there's fraud, these people are lunatics. And if it comes to fraud,
you have to excuse me, guys. I keep having this lingering cough.
I'm not sure that you would anyway.
I gotta go check
we
that.
just want to do the right thing. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. It went crazy during the Biden administration. They went totally crazy. What they were doing, and the money they were giving to people that shouldn't be getting it, and to agencies and others that shouldn't be getting it, was a shame. So they're tremendous fraud. But we'll be doing a report. We'll be giving you that report at the appropriate time.
Yeah. In the first term, though, USAID was something that you liked in some respects.
I love the concept of it. Yeah, sure. I love the concept, but they turn out to be radical left lunatics. And the concept of it is good, but it's all about the people.
Mr. President, you said you also want to impose tariffs on the EU. What kind of tariffs are you thinking about?
Well, we have massive deficits with the European Union, massive. Like $350 billion, if you can believe it. They don't take our farm product. They don't take our cars. They don't take almost anything, but we take their cars. We have millions of cars coming in, BMW and Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen, and just so many different cars, and we don't do anything about that. And we don't charge them tariffs. They make it impossible to sell cars in the European Union. They make it very difficult, agricultural product. They actually don't take it. And they have a lot of excuses. Some of them are the pesticides and the different chemicals used. And Bobby Kennedy actually is looking at that very, very seriously, because maybe it's not necessary to use all of that. We want to be the healthiest country, and we're not. We spend more money on food than anybody else in terms of its creation, but we're not the healthiest country. So maybe there is something to the fact that we shouldn't be using so much chemical, and maybe that'll stop. But Bobby Kennedy is the one, because he is not a believer in all of the things we have done, and neither are the Europeans. So we'll see what happens. But they use it as an excuse not to buy our product. And I asked a couple of the leaders, I don't want to use names, but how many Chevrolets or Fords do you see in the middle of Munich? And the answer is none, because they don't take any cars. They don't take anything. So the European has abused the United States for years, and they can't do that. And they want to make a deal. Let me tell you, in all cases, they all want to make deals. There's nobody that doesn't want to make deals. They've been abusers, and they want to make deals. So we'll see about that. But we'll have, I think, some very fair. All we want is a fair deal. And there's a word, reciprocal. I'd go right now, reciprocal tariffs on everybody. because many of the countries that you feel so horrible about, the way they're being treated by Trump, you say, oh, President Trump is so terrible to them. Well, they charge us tariffs. European Union has a VAT tax, which is through the roof, okay? It's a similar thing, similar to a tariff. It's a VAT. And they have it, and it's numbers like you wouldn't believe. And Canada, I told you about the banks, and I told you they charge us. And people don't say that. They don't like to say it. Just like they don't like to say that I opened up the water for California. It's a great thing. It's too bad they didn't do it themselves. I had to do it, and it was not easy. We did it a very rough way. And I didn't like to do it a rough way. We shouldn't have to do it a rough way. But a lot of these countries that we're talking about, you know, they're so-called allies, but they don't treat us well. And just like I got $420 billion, and now it's actually over $600 billion, the Secretary General of NATO came in 2 weeks ago, and he said it was a miracle when Trump came in, when President Trump came into NATO, he said it was $636 billion. By saying to them, no, you have to pay. And if you don't pay, we're not going to be there for you. You know, somebody has to say it, and they paid. And it was a large amount of money. And one of the problems we have with the Russia-Ukraine situation is that we wanted to see some equalization, because we're in for close to $300 billion, and they're in for $200 billion less. Why are they in for less? Because Biden never asked them for money. He never said, you got to pay. He never did. All he did is hand out money. So we're talking with them right now, and we're actually working some deals right now. So we have some guarantees and some other things to keep that whole situation to go, really going. I mean, going. We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal. They should really be paying much more than us. But let's say equal to us. And they're billions and billions of dollars below. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
They had a deal with Mexico this morning. Was that partially related to the market reaction and a criticism from Mr. Murdoch's own newspaper? He called it the dumbest trade war on the editorial page on Saturday.
I'm going to have to talk to him. I've been right over the Wall Street Journal many times, I will tell you. I don't agree with him on some things. No, it's not only is it not dumb, you're going to see. Every single one of those countries is dying to make a deal. You know why? Because they're ripping us off really badly. And the United States is tired of just being ripped off.
So if you guys caught that, they're trying to get him on a Wall Street Journal, a conservative publication, is saying this was the dumbest trade war ever. Okay, here it is, right? The dumbest trade war in history. Trump will impose that tariff on them for no good reason. But would you look at this? It's not journalism. What does this say right here? It's an opinion piece, right? Opinion. There you go. Opinion. I think you can see that big on the screen, right? Yeah. It's opinion. So they're sitting here, again, media's misconstruing things. Trump's kind of like, what? I don't know about that. Nobody knows about it because this some jabroni's opinion. Who is it? Oh, it's the editorial board. It's the editorial board. Okay. No one's brave enough to, actually write a piece. They had to do it as a collection. Not really. It's just the aggregate editorial board that's always involved in issuing these opinion pieces. But, context is important, right? Pretty clear here. And the funny thing is, they ran with this on ABC News this evening and said, the Wall Street Journal calls these tariffs the dumbest tariffs like ever, right? But they say that, and it seems like, oh, Wall Street Journal, a lot of people give the publication, a considerable amount of credibility, just, in name and the historical record. Likewise, same thing is done with New York Times. In name, the history behind the publication. It gives it a lot of weight. But in this case, it's an opinion piece. They publish all kinds of opinions in there, and that's fine. But it should not be misconstrued as fact by the media or represented in that way. Some jabroni decided to go out there and say, like, here's my opinion, is the dumbest trade war ever. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
And that's why we have $36 trillion in debt. We have it for a reason, because we make bad deals with everybody. And we don't allow that anymore. So the Wall Street Journal is wrong because, very simply, every single country that you're writing about right now is dying to make a deal, because the deals they have right now are so good and so good for them and so profitable for them. You didn't know that Canada didn't allow our banks. You didn't know all of these different things. And I think in the end, you're going to see that either very, very substantial tariffs are going to be paid by them, or they're going to make some kind of a deal.
Did Mexican President Sheinbaum?
Did what?
Did you blink this morning?
There was no blinking. No, she's a wonderful woman, but she did agree to 10,000 soldiers on the border. I would say that's a lot. Would you say that's pretty good? 10,000 soldiers on the border? And the 10,000 soldiers are going to keep illegal aliens out, and they're going to keep them out, seriously out, and otherwise they're going to have a big penalty. Mexico's going to be penalized. They're not going to come through Mexico anymore, and they're not going to let the fentanyl come in from China. And China hopefully is going to stop sending us fentanyl, and if they're not, the tariffs are going to go substantially higher.
Sir, Ron, just to clarify what you said about Ukraine earlier, the rare earths, is that something you want them to give the rare earths to the United States?
Yeah. I want to have security of rare earth. We're putting in hundreds of billions of dollars. They have great rare earth, and I want security of the rare earth. And they're willing to do it.
Sir, you mentioned earlier that you
On Canada.
Interesting, right? He's not pulling any punches. He's being very straightforward about it. A lot of times these politicians don't want to say something like that because it'll make them seem like they're taking advantage. But the reality of it is just we need those materials for everything that's modern at this point, from cell phones to chips to everything.
When you talk to Justin Trudeau again, is there anything he can give you at 3 p.m. when you talk again to also
I don't know.
pause,
I don't know.
like you said with Mexico?
I don't know. We have big deficits with Canada, like we do with all countries. I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals that are so bad? But with Canada, I have a talk with him, and you maybe know or maybe not. We're going to meet again or talk again at 3 o'clock, right after my next meeting, and we'll see what happens. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
You mentioned that he could agree to change your mind on the tariff.
Well, we can always, look, what I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. We give them protection, military protection. We don't need them to build our cars. I'd rather see Detroit or South Carolina or any one of our, Tennessee, any one of our states build the cars. They could do it very easily. We don't need them for the cars. We don't need them for lumber. We don't need them for anything. We don't need them for energy. We have more energy than they do. We don't need them for energy. So I say, why are we doing this? Why are we willing to lose between $100 billion and $200 billion a year? We don't need them. As a state, it's different. As a state, it's much different. And there are no tariffs. So I'd love to see that, but some people say that would be a long shot. If people wanted to play the game right, it would be 100% certain that they'd become a state. But a lot of people don't like to play the game because they don't have a threshold of pain. And there would be some pain, but not a lot. The pain would be really there. So we're going to meet again by phone at 3 o'clock, and we'll let you know what
on Israel, President Trump, you're prepared to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Coming in tomorrow.
Yes, you mentioned in the past you're concerned about Israel being too small geographically. Would you support annexation of parts of the West Bank by Israel?
Well, I'm not going to talk about that. It certainly is a small, it's a small country in terms of land. See this pen, this wonderful pen? My desk is the Middle East. And this pen, the top of the pen, that's Israel. That's not good, right? It's a pretty big difference. I use that as an analogy. It's pretty accurate, actually. It's a pretty small piece of land, and it's amazing that they've been able to do what they've been able to do. When you think about it, there's a lot of good, smart brain power, but it is a very small piece of land, no question about it.
Mr. President, you said earlier that Elon Musk is doing everything with your say-so. So is there everything that he has done thus far, going to all the agencies, shutting off access, getting access to federal payments, that all has yours? You're okay with all of that?
For the most part, yeah. If we, if there was something that didn't have my okay, I'd let you know about it really fast.
And you said there's some areas where you wouldn't let him work because he has conflicts of interest.
If there was no, I haven't seen that, and he would know not to do it. So we haven't had that yet. But if there was a conflict, we would let him work in that area.
Earlier you said with regard to Panama that they were going to make a deal where the U.S. was going to take it. How long do they have to make that sort of deal, and are you still leaving on the table?
We're going to meet with Panama on Friday at about 3:30 in the afternoon by phone, and maybe there'll be some representatives that, here or there. But we're going to be talking to Panama on Friday, essentially. And they've agreed to certain things, but I'm not happy with it.
On the Middle East, Mr. President, if I may, do you still have doubts that the ceasefire will hold?
On what?
On the Middle East, do you think the ceasefire will hold?
I have no assurances that it'll hold. I mean, I've seen people brutalized. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. No, I have no guarantees that the peace is going to hold. Steve, you might want to say something about that. Steve Woodcock.
It's holding so far. So, and we're certainly hopeful, and that's the president's direction. Get the hostages out, save lives, and come to hopefully a peaceful settlement of it all. So far it's holding.
Mr. President, on a different topic, questionnaires have been going out to FBI agents across the country who were involved potentially in the investigation. Do you believe anyone involved at any level should be fired, sir?
Well, I think the FBI was a very corrupt institution, and I'm a victim of it in a true sense. I was able to beat it, but other people have been treated horribly. I think the FBI had a great reputation. I think its reputation was really damaged badly, as is DOJ. Look at what they've done in terms of weaponization. Look at what they've done to a political opponent. Probably got me elected by what they did, or I think I was doing well anyway, but they might have got me elected. But you know what? We have to have pristine, beautiful, perfect law enforcement. And what we want to do, and Cash is the one to do it. He's the one guy.
All right, guys. We just got a few minutes left here. We'll tune into the Democrats going a little crazy here. Won't do that full event. It's not terribly exciting if you watch the whole deal, but it's some snippets early on. But I'm going to take a quick break while this one's going here. Let Trump finish out his comments here in the Oval Office.
That is going to do it. We have to bring the reputation of the FBI. We have to bring the fact of the FBI back to what it could be. Not even to what it was, even better than it ever was. Because who would have thought that the FBI could have been corrupted like they were corrupted? Who would have thought that would have happened? Who would have thought they would have been used to go after, political opponents, essentially, but me being the number one, and so many other things beyond that. And they've been hurt very badly, and we'll see what happens. But Cash is the one to do it, and I hear he's doing very well. Cash will straighten it out. We have great confidence that we can make the FBI great again. Okay, one or two more, and we'll be done. Say it?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I think Tulsi's going to be doing okay. I'm not sure. I can't guarantee anything, but she's liked by so many people, especially people in the military and law enforcement.
She has a little bit of trouble with some senators over her thoughts on Edward Snowden. I know Snowden, you've mentioned in the past you're thinking about pardoning him. Are you still, and what do you think about that?
No, I don't talk about it right now. I just, people feel very differently. Some people think he should be pardoned, and some people think it would be a terrible thing to do, but I don't get involved in that.
Mr. President, what are you discussing with Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Ellison?
Just respect. I have great respect for Rupert Murdoch. I disagree with him a lot of times with the Wall Street Journal, but that's all right. We've disagreed before, and I'm sure they didn't have any idea what they were talking about, because already you see what's happening. Look at Colombia. Look at what happened with that. Everybody said that with Colombia it was going to be a disaster. In 1 hour, everything was settled. You know why? Tariffs. Tariffs. Without tariffs, they wouldn't have been the same way. They would not have treated me the way they treated me, which was extremely nicely. And I don't want to use countries, I don't want to use names, but tariffs are very powerful, both economically and in getting everything else you want. Tariffs for us, nobody can compete with us because we're the pot of gold. But if we don't keep winning and keep doing well, we won't be the pot of gold, and then tariffs won't be so good for us. But when you're the pot of gold, the tariffs are very good. They're very powerful, and they're going to make our country very rich again. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Let's go.
I don't know.
Thank you, guys. Let's go.
How is the market doing?
Hey, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Let's go.
It did? I don't know. I don't think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So again, a miraculous feat, getting work done, speaking with reporters, answering questions, helping to really lay out the case for all of his activities. Now, again, the sequence of events we've watched through, Rubio in Panama gives a talk on the wins that have come in, 10,000 troops from Mexico, or Mexican troops going to the border to help secure it. Big win there. Likewise, Canada is actually going to act on a $1.5 billion plan. They're actually going to do it instead of just having it be on paper to help secure the northern border. Big wins, right? And there's more to come because the tariffs are still out there. They'll go into effect in 30 days if not updated. So you have that, but then in the interview, Rubio was asked about U.S. aid or USAID. I keep saying USAID. And so he had to push back on that quite a bit, and he realized, hey, I'm not getting anywhere with these reporters. They're just trying to do gotcha stuff with USAID, so he walked away from that. Then, of course, he had Caroline Leavitt, who also was attempted to be questioned by the press, and they went to USAID, and she very conveniently pulled out of her pocket a printout with examples of the waste that USAID is putting out there. Paying for like comic books to be created in a given country. It's like, why do that? It's bizarre. She went into a little bit more detail in that. So her thing, she reset, the narrative, pushed back on what the press was promoting out there. And of course, then we have Trump here, who is reaffirming all of these developments and commitments that are out there. Big gains, honestly, in such a short amount of time. Excuse me, guys.
Thank you all for being with us today.
And so now, of course, thinking about USAID, we have the Democrat Party out there in front of the building protesting the cuts that are impending, or that being consolidated into the State Department under Marco Rubio.
Very much appreciate your responding so quickly. We are here today. We're here today to shine a light on a crime that is unfolding before our eyes and support our tremendous U.S. civil servants at USAID. President Trump directed his corrupt billionaire friend, Elon Musk, to ransack a critical agency of the U.S. government. Musk and his band of unelected acolytes at DOJ have locked out USAID employees from their offices, improperly accessed highly classified information, purged the agency of its nonpartisan leadership, and thrown the agency into chaos through a concerted campaign of harassment and intimidation of its employees. This is on top of Trump's freeze of crucial foreign assistance programs. These actions severely harm our national security. They put thousands of children around the world at immediate risk of starvation, disease, and death, and sideline some of our finest civil servants who work tirelessly every day to make the world a better place. This is a case of the very worst among us attacking the very best of us. The work USAID does is vital to all Americans. Agency employees stationed here in the capital region and in posts around the world work hand in hand with our military to counter terrorism, and to stabilize dangerous regions. They monitor and they fight diseases like Ebola and bird flu to prevent them from coming to the United States. And they work with U.S. companies to provide life-saving medical care and food assistance for children. Through these activities and others, U.S. aid has been an invaluable pillar of U.S. foreign policy and projecting American power overseas. Its elimination only helps our adversaries, Russia and China, who want to see our global influence reduced at any cost. It's no coincidence then that Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man with billions of dollars of investment in China, is doing China's bidding. Lastly, what Trump and Musk have done is not only wrong, it's illegal. USAID was established by an act of Congress, and it can only be disbanded by an act of Congress. Stopping this will require action by the courts and for Republicans to show up and show courage and stand up for our country. Further, I'm urging my fellow Democrats to use every legislative tool we have at our disposal to slow down and stop this crime from succeeding. We're here to shine a light on this. You see the wonderful people that are here with us. Let me give you my good friend, Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you, Don. Well, thank you to Don Beyer and all of our colleagues gathered here and all of you who are here at this moment of a clear and present danger for the future of our country. Make no mistake, this effort by Elon Musk and so-called DOGE to shut down the Agency for International Development is an absolute gift to our adversaries, to Russia, to China, to Iran and others, because AID is an essential instrument of U.S. foreign policy and U.S. national security policy. So this has nothing to do with making the U.S. government more efficient and everything to do with aiding and abetting our adversaries around the world. If you doubt that for a moment, listen to what the former president and Putin crony Medvedev just put out on X. Quote, "Smart move by Elon Musk," referring to shutting down AID. Former Russian president and stooge of Vladimir Putin. This is also a huge gift to the PRC. And it's interesting that Vivek Ramaswamy, who was originally the Elon Musk co-pilot on Doge, is no longer here. But here's what he said just a year or so ago. Quote, "Tesla is increasingly beholden to China. I have no reason to think that Elon won't jump like a circus monkey when Xi Jinping calls in the hour of need," unquote. He went on to refer to Musk as a Chinese puppet and then when posted on X that the U.S. needs leaders who aren't in China's pocket. This is Vivek Ramaswamy, who had been originally, as you know, one of the co-chairs at this so-called Doge. The recently installed Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had this to say a number of years ago with respect to Elon Musk and Tesla. Quote, "Right after President Biden signed Senator Rubio's Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act into law, at Tesla opened a store in Xinjiang." He went on to say nationless corporations are helping the Chinese Communist Party cover up genocide and slave labor in the region, unquote. That is Secretary Rubio, and as we speak, he is allowing Elon Musk to essentially take over AID. This is a corrupt abuse of power that is going on. As my colleague said, it's not only a gift to our adversaries, but trying to shut down the Agency for International Development by executive order is plain illegal. It is illegal. Elon Musk may get to be dictator of Tesla, but he doesn't, and he may try to play dictator here in Washington, D.C., but he doesn't get to shut down the Agency for International Development. Now, as we're speaking, at a federal court, at the district court, right down the road, there's an ongoing hearing, I don't know if it's over yet, about the earlier effort of the Trump administration to stop federal grants around the country to communities and people in need. There's a stay on that, and then in Rhode Island, the Attorney General's got a TRO on that. So what you're seeing here with respect to AID is a continuing effort around those illegal actions. Now, over the weekend, I had multiple conversations with lawyers, and I want to commend all the lawyers who are working on upholding the rule of law here, including Democracy Forward, which is an organization that helped file the lawsuit pending right now in the D.C. District Court. I am confident that when they look into this, and they are looking into this, that they will also file suits to hold the Trump administration and Elon Musk accountable. This is a clear violation of our law. Finally, let me just say a word to all the men and women and employees who work with AID. Thank you for your service to the United States of America. And we have all asked the authorities at AID, we've made multiple calls, to allow us just to enter the building in AID when this press conference is over, simply to talk to the civil servants at AID, those who may be in the building. As you know, they were told not to come in. But we would like to see firsthand what is happening to this essential agency that does such good work on the American people. So, to our colleagues at AID and across the government, stay strong. We have your back. We will do everything in our power in the Senate and the House to stop this outrage. And in the meantime, since we don't have many Republican colleagues who want to help us, we are doing everything we can with our colleagues through the courts to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, stop this illegal shutdown of AID, and stop the other illegal actions around the government. Let me now bring up a really good colleague of mine, known him for years. He's now the ranking member of the Oversight Committee in the House of Representatives. He knows AID and foreign policy is.
Hey everybody, I'm back. Just had to take a small break there. This is a funny combo. I don't know if they went together or not. Is the streamer guy Russian? No, must be a USAID contractor. I don't know if that's referencing me or somebody else that was up here, but funny stuff out of context potentially.
As well as anybody, better than most, Jerry Connolly. All right.
Good afternoon. We're here today not only to fight for...
But you see these folks that are coming up here, residents of the Ivory Tower for the past 30, 40 years. What do they actually know of the needs of people? Do we really need all these programs to, as was pointed out earlier by the press secretary, do we really need these programs to create comic books in foreign countries and create plays in foreign countries on controversial topics that are not very tasteful necessarily to most of the country? I mean, but what's going on here, right?
Federal employees who dedicate themselves every day to a humanitarian task. We are here to save lives because that is what AID does.
And you know, the Ivory Tower approach again, just talk about these, lofty ambitions, and then when we talk about, oh, wait a minute, well, there's Americans that are starving here. It's like, oh, nope, not paying attention. Don't know what you're talking about. All right, so real quick, I'm just going to show a clip here of Schumer. Of course, he couldn't miss out on all this action. He had to get in on it and talk about you know, how USAID is so critical. So they're trying to change the narrative. See if we can lock in on USAID and say that, you know, people are going hungry because of Trump's actions and Elon Musk, and that's how awful they are. They're trying to be, you know, take all the money and keep it for the rich. People are going hungry. People are dying of starvation, and so forth. Anyway, this dynamic duo had to get in on the action. And again, it's pretty ridiculous though, because I mean, what true value do they bring to the table at this point in time? They really need to hand their seats off to somebody else to take over the party.
Good
and run with
afternoon,
things.
everybody. I'm proud to be joined by Senators.
And I guarantee you, watch, he's going to stumble and mumble up here again. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He just reads off of a piece of paper.
Murray, Warren, Schatz, and Wyden. Now, before our very eyes, an unelected shadow.
It's almost called Elon Musk an elected official here. Freudian slip. I mean, it is the discretion of the president who his aides are, so forth. The president has the capacity to declassify anything, share information with anyone who he deems appropriate to further the interests of the country. So this whole thing that they're creating here, I don't know, pretty much a mess. It's a bunch of nothing. And again, because the tariffs worked out so doggone successfully and so quickly, they're trying to pivot. All of a sudden, USAID is the big ticket item. Not going to go into it tonight. There's more here on that briefing that Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and others gave. Kash Patel, epic testimony that he gives. Where's this guy been all these years? Sorry about that, guys. Excuse me. Really good stuff going on there. But again, it's very unfortunate that we cannot trust the news to just listen to what's happening. ABC News, again, famously putting it out there like, oh, Wall Street Journal says, you know, these are the worst, you know, the dumbest tariffs in history. I can't believe it. But again, as I showed you earlier, it was an opinion piece that was published in there. So any random person could have dropped in an opinion piece. In this case, it was their editorial board, but still, opinion piece, and yet they're portraying it as real news. That should be clarified, and it's not. There's so many instances of these nuances being stretched now. So it seems like the Democrat strategy is to move away from tariffs because that worked out a little too well for Trump, and attack on USAID. But what they forget is that the stock market is not the greatest indication of how the economy is doing for people in general. They need to look at, take a deeper dive on data. And it's the stuff that I mentioned before. You can go to politicalcow.com. I've got it in my stream notes from last go around, the breakdown of spending in you know, different parts of government, what the tariffs are really impacting, and in previous stream notes. There's also breakdowns of real metrics that show you how people are doing in the country. And as I mentioned earlier, half the country struggles to pay rent or their mortgage on a month-to-month basis. A quarter of that same population skip meals in order to make ends meet, and that's to pay rent, that's for electricity, basic services, water. They skip meals in order to make ends meet like that. And year over year, 500,000 more people have started taking on second jobs to make ends meet. For economic purposes, as the BLS describes it, not for fun, right? For economic reasons, they've taken on a second job. So you go down the list of that: household income, not keeping up with inflation, household debt on the rise. Something's going to give here, right? There's a lot of personal indicators that are demonstrating that the system is not quite working. All that money that Biden printed and dropped into this broken system went into asset values, primarily in the stock market and in real estate. And so the consequence is that folks that owned a lot of assets, well, those values skyrocketed, right? Folks that their primary asset is their home and real estate now unfortunately have to enjoy higher property tax rates because of it. And again, that's exacerbating another trend of these hedge funds buying up properties that, you know, another topic that needs to get addressed. But again, the Democrats turn a blind eye. They just point to the market. Feel good that you voted Democrat. Look at the stock market. We won. That's our scoreboard. But did it really do anything for you personally? I mean, for a lot of folks, yeah, our 401ks, company plans, they went well. Mine was great. But I recognize that I am not by any stretch part of that majority, nor are many others. There's a lion's share of people that are not set up for retirement. There is no answer to Social Security that is not taking enough money in and paying out far more than it takes in at this point. It's completely out of balance. And so when these tariffs that were put out there that said, hey, you know, if these go through, it's going to add revenues of $340 billion, and that would take care of all education spending in the government or some of the other ones. Again, politicalcow.com, you'll see the breakdowns. That needs to be looked into. Maybe this model of income tax is not the right one. Maybe we need to have something that kind of hits consumption a little bit more. And then, of course, people say, like, oh, I thought Republicans were for free trade, so forth. That's not really the principle of conservatism. Free trade, if it's done in the right way, and if it's done fairly, and it has a level of equality in terms of those opportunities, that's one thing. But we're not going to go AI and autonomous vehicles and displace the millions of transportation workers in the country. That's not happening. Tucker Carlson will say the same thing, big-time conservative pundit. He would never displace those workers because they mean so much for the economy. So they're just going to have to figure out a different way of going about it and transition it over time. So there's a lot of these things that, you're not going to be an absolutist about. You have to be practical. You can't be an academic, as Democrats like to be so much, right? There's a variance there. And so when you see Schumer, you see Warren, you see some of those other folks in front of the USAID office, honestly, that may be the first time they were in front of that building in their life, and they've been in office for 40 years. But, that's the ivory tower for you. Like, where do I show up? Is this going to look good? Are they going to give me some poll numbers going my way? I don't know. So, in any event, I'm going to stop short on showing the rest of the Schumer piece. You go to politicalcow.com, check out the rest of it. I'm hitting the 2-hour mark here. I'm going to close down things on the live stream here. Let me just take a quick scan. I did not have, did not have guest call-in enabled. There might be a link in the description, so if you guys click through that, I apologize. I'm not set up right now to take guest call-ins, unfortunately. I'm trying to sort out having both horizontal and vertical views, as well as incorporating the guest call-in. Trying to reconcile how I go about doing that properly. But let me see. What else do we got here in the guests? Should the U.S. support expansion of territory? Ooh, 61% say no. Wow. I'm all for it. Let's get some more territory if it's in our interest. How do tariffs make your rent, meal services, and energy cheaper? Don't drink the Kool-Aid. I'm weirdly... Oh, wow, Moni, my goodness. I didn't know Schumer had that effect on people. Was it Schumer or just the sight of Elizabeth Warren? I don't know. One of those two. Why do people trust a whiny crybaby who has N? Says Ted. I don't know. Schumer's always out there saying stuff. The funny thing is he's always got his glasses that is pointed at the end of his nose, like he's looking down on everybody. It's a really odd look. But anyway, guys, like, subscribe. Very much appreciate it. It's a very late night stream. Just under 16,000 come through, which is pretty good for this late hour. I just needed to kind of get through a few things that got in the way before I was able to spin up the live stream. So a bit of a political ASMR session here, but what are you going to do? Anyway, I appreciate it, y'all. Like, subscribe, share the stream. I appreciate the gifts that have rolled in. I haven't put up Cash App links recently, but I appreciate it, though, guys. And check out YouTube's feature. They're doing gifts and stuff now, kind of like they did on the Tic Tac. Kind of cool. It's funny, too. I don't know if people realize it, but if you give gifts on the Tic Tac, half of it goes to Tic Tac, and the other half goes to the person that you're actually desiring to give it to. Which I'm multi-streaming on there right now. Hopefully don't ban my account for saying that out loud, but YouTube offers a much better proposition for creators. Just telling you guys in general, as you have other folks that you watch and so forth. All right, guys, shutting it down. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Like and subscribe.
The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. And in her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. Truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise.